Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to make yourself a cup of tea because today we have very interesting stories and one of them is a story about an OP who is deaf and about an entitled woman who demanded OP to speak English because it's very rude to use hand signal stuff. Please subscribe if you haven't and I hope you'll enjoy it. My parents own a small business. We are a pack and ship store that also sells stuff for some local artists. We also do some other services, such as faxing, fingerprinting, printing, copying, shredding, and notaries. My siblings, some friends, and I work at the store. I was at work about 2 weeks ago and we were very busy during lunchtime, which is pretty normal for us. My brother, mom, and I were all there, and both my brother and my mom were handling their own things, and I was disinfecting the counter. This plump piggish lady with the classical Karen haircut walks in. She looked like Dolores Umbridge if Umbridge had a Karen haircut. I finished disinfecting, put the rag back into the bucket of disinfectant, then went to the register to help her. She was pleasant at first. She told me she needed to print and sign 2 large documents, then scan them in and email them to the company they were for and herself. Normal stuff for our business. So she emailed the documents to us. Sometimes Verizon phones struggle to connect to data within our store and our network is secure because of safety and privacy for our customers. She had a Verizon phone and was instantly frustrated with how long it took for it to send. Around this time, her daughter came in, apparently in a rush. Her daughter barely spoke while she was here, but Karen had mentioned something along the lines of her needing to go to work soon. I'll call her CS, college student. She seemed much nicer than her mother. So I finally got the emailed documents. They were PDF files that required a password. So I disinfected the keyboard and gave it to Karen to log into the PDFs so we could print them. She typed her password in and hit enter. Wrong password. So she typed it in again. Wrong password. I lost count of how many times she tried to type in the same damn password and kept getting the wrong password. By now, all other customers in the store have come and gone. Another batch has come and gone. Finally, I sheepishly asked if there was a different one she could have used. That's when she started to get nasty. I know my password, it's the name of my daughter. I exchanged a look with my brother, then quietly said okay, ma'am. Tried different combinations, then. She tried the password a few more times, while I just waited awkwardly. CS was wandering around the store, looking at the things we have for sale. I was watching her as I waited. Then Karen cleared her throat, so I looked at her. Why are you just standing there like a freaking idiot? CS glared at her from across the store. I was a bit dumbfounded and, frankly, exhausted. So it took me a moment to actually register what she said. I just quietly apologized and stared at the counter. She kept grumbling about how I'm so unhelpful and I should be helping her more. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I suggested again to try different combinations. She did that snarly sigh thing that grouchy teenagers such as myself do. She typed in something else. And suddenly, we had access to the documents. She grumbled something along the lines of freaking finally, then called her daughter over. I tried to print it and it came up with an error code. So I called my mom over and she helped me riddle it out. But then it printed absolutely tiny. So my mom and I spent a few minutes fandangling with settings. That's when I noticed that it was set to the receipt printer size. So I set it to letter size and printed it again. Perfection. Karen's face lit up and she said, "You're so smart. Thank you." Oh, the irony. The rest of the job was pretty routine. I told my brother what happened afterwards and he gave me a hug. 3 minutes later, I hear my mom's voice raise. She said what? But that was the last we were expecting to hear from that lady, so there wasn't anything we could do. Work went back on like normal. But wait. There's more. We got a call about 40 minutes after CS and Karen left. My mom picked it up because my brother and I were handling customers. It was Karen's husband. He said they never got the email and that Karen wanted to send it to his email as well now. So we sent the documents to them again and all was fine. Then the husband stopped before he hung up and asked, "Did my wife cause any trouble while she was there? She keeps saying the customer service there was awful and I don't believe her." Not his exact words, but roughly what he said according to my mom. My mom told him what happened. He thanked her and hung up. I'd like to believe that Karen got chewed out. Who knows? Actually, I think her husband is a way better person than her. I hope the husband will do something to prevent this kind of idiotness of his wife. Past, me, as always, very nice police officer. This takes place in my hometown. A house had been built right next to ours over the course of the past year and a half, and a small family moved into it. We never met the family, as we are usually not ones to go out of our way to meet people, so it came as a huge surprise when this happened. We have a backyard, which is private. It is surrounded by a fence with a locking gate. M's house had a deck that overlooked our backyard. Midwinter, our dryer decided to die, and we had to take all our clothes to the closest laundromat to dry at least once a week. Once spring rolled around, I decided to put a clothesline in our backyard to help save money. A few weeks went by, and at least once a week, I would be out there hanging loads of laundry to dry. On one such occasion, our neighbor, was out on her deck talking on her phone. I paid her no mind and just hung my clothes to dry. As I was headed back inside, I heard the dreaded banshee screech that was Hey. Boy. I'm a woman, but I have my hair cut short with most of it buzzed, so I can see why she assumed I was a boy. I looked over, mostly because of the noise she made, not because I thought she was talking to me. But unfortunately she was. You can't hang those out here. What? My clothes. Yay. You can't hang your filthy clothes out here where I have to look at them. What if my kids see? Are you some kind of an idiot? Lady, it's my backyard. If I want to hang my laundry to dry in my backyard, I can. And with that, I flipped her the universal sign to go pleasure herself and went inside. About a half hour later, I hear a knock on my door. When I answer it, there is a police officer standing at my door. Good afternoon, ma'am. He knew I was a woman, and yet somehow didn't. We received a call about a severe violation. Would you happen to know anything about this? Seriously? Was just screaming at me for hanging my underwear on my clothesline out back. I assure you nothing else is happening. Do you mind if I take a look? With nothing to hide, of course. I showed the officer my clothesline, and we could clearly see glaring at us with a smug look on her face from her deck. The officer thanked me, went to speak with and that was that. I'd be worried the Karen will throw stuff on the clothes, set up a camera just in case when you're drying your laundry. Just in case, to be sure. I used to be the manager at a fabric store, so I had a lot of entitled moms come through my doors, but my most fond memory was of this one lady. It was a busy day, so I was helping cut fabric when her number was called. She sets her, I'm assuming, 2-year-old on the cut counter and her fabric right next to him. Me. Ma'am? Could you please take your child off the counter? It's dangerous and also I need the space to cut your fabric. BP. But my arms are full. If your arms are full, there's shopping carts at the entrance. They even have a child spot so he can sit in the cart. Win-win. She rolled her eyes and stormed off, leaving the kid in her fabric. The front really wasn't far from the counter, so I got worried when a few minutes pass by and she doesn't come back. I call over our headset to my co-workers to see if anyone sees her. Nobody had. Worried the EP had ran out of the store and left her kid. This wasn't the first time this has happened in the store. I picked him up and started to search the aisles. I found her shopping down another aisle. Ma'am, I think you forgot something. EP. Where's my fabric? Me. What? EP. My fabric. I told you I needed 2 yards. Me. You left your baby on the counter, plus you have to be present while I cut the fabric. EP. I just left him with you. You were watching him while I finished shopping. Absolutely baffled at this point. Ma'am, that's not how this works. You really need to keep an eye on your kid. EP. You are paid to be here, right? So I'm paying your bills. Just watch him so I can get my shopping done. He's not that hard to watch. Me. If he's not that hard to watch, I'll just put him in your cart. How about that? At this point I was trying to hand off the baby to her, but she was pulling her cart away from me. BP. I'll take him back when you cut my fabric. Me. Ma'am, really, you have to watch your kid. This isn't a daycare. EP. Well, I'm not finished shopping. I told you I would take him back when my fabric is cut and ready. At this point I was fed up and was in an awkward situation, so I just snapped. I turned and walked back to the cut counter where one of my co-workers cut the 2 yards of the fabric, but instead of walking it back to her, I marched to the front of the store, where we have a PA system where I loudly used for the entire store. "Attention, fabric store shoppers, would the woman who left her baby at the cut counter please pick him up? Once again, would the woman who left her baby at the cut counter please pick him up? Thank you." You could hear a pin drop through the whole store, except the furious wheels of one shopping cart, EPs. I have never seen someone look as red out of anger as she did. She grabbed her kid and stormed through the checkout, where I smiled and told her to have a nice day. I know sometimes parents walk away if they just need one thing, but please remember not to leave your kids with retail workers, our lives are hard enough as it is. I often see how people would routinely leave their kids in stores for hours at a time. It's not a problem if a kid is 12. It is a problem when unsupervised 7-year-olds are running around, and when that happens people just call the cops to report child abandonment. Background: I'm severely hard of hearing, but consider myself deaf. When your hearing is that shot, you might as well be. I also operate a very small, local deaf meetup group in my local area which includes a hearing person, one of my roommates, who just seems to enjoy hanging out with us, and we're fine with that. When with a group, I don't wear my hearing aids as that roommate is usually fine with handling things if and when hearing is needed. He's a trooper. At this particular meetup which happened this morning at Shoney's for their breakfast, we came across an entitled parent. The story. Everyone was seated, casually naming their favorite breakfast items from the breakfast bar at Shoney's, everyone giggling back and forth with one another and enjoying our time together. But we did notice a kid that was nearby bugging my roommate about something. I wouldn't know what's being said until after we arrived home after the meetup and will include the conversational bits where relevant. Kid. Why aren't any of you talking? Roommate. I can talk, they are deaf and can't hear speech, so we use sign language to talk. Kid. That's cool. Kid ran off and the roommate didn't think anything more of it. It's not uncommon for someone to ask about sign language here or there or ask us how to say something or get advice on where they can learn the language. Sounds like nothing spectacular so far, I know, but it wasn't until we were ending our little meetup and start saying our goodbyes when the kid's mother approaches our table. Again, the deafies are just thinking yet another person with a sign language question, the hearing can handle it. Apparently the kid's mom was so offended that we weren't speaking vocally that she intended to make her stupid opinion known. You need to stop doing the hand signal stuff and speak English, it's very rude. Roommate. I'm sorry, what? These guys are deaf, so. Cuts him off. I don't care if they're deaf, they can speak English like everyone else in America. Roommate. No, they can't, literally 2 of these people were born completely deaf, they don't know what English even remotely sounds like. It's not my fault they're deaf, they should still speak English, and you too, stop messing about with your hands, it's very rude. Roommate. It's very rude to insist people with a disability to cater to your sensibilities, and honestly I wish I were deaf myself, so I wouldn't have to hear the screeching of a heartless idiot with less than 2 brain cells to rub together. You can't speak like that around children. She ends up huffing and running off, at this point though she's gotten the attention of everyone at our meetup. We all were thinking that was the end of it, and the roommate signed to us telling us, crazy lady thinks we're throwing gang signs and other stupid stuff, everything's fine. Well, turns out ended up getting the manager demanding we be kicked out. So enter manager stage left. Manager arrives at the table with and the poor kid in tow, having looking smug like she just accomplished something huge. Manager, I've got a complaint that your entire party has been rude and cussing. The manager notices sign language being used and asks the entitled mother, ma'am, do you know what they're saying? No, not at all, they're not speaking English, which is very rude. We're in America and in America we speak English. Roommate swears this is what she said, and since we do live in the sticks I wouldn't put it past that someone would say something like this, manager, ma'am, we can't kick people out for not speaking English. But they're insulting me and my kid, just look at them. At this point it's worth noting that when we're discussing something or someone, if the object of discussion is available they're pointed at. At no point in our discussion did we point at the entitled mother nor her kid. What we were talking about was various subjects from cats to the gal we got recently invited from Walmart, talking about wanting to get a fish tank and a small fighter beta and other places they'd like to go for the next meetup. So nothing involving the entitled parent nor her kid. Roommate. Actually, points to one of us, she's talking about getting a fish tank and getting a betta fish, points to me, he's getting information on where the next meetup might take place, points to the black guy, he's talking about a kitten he recently adopted, points the entitled mother, and she's being rude, insisting deaf people need to stop using sign language to accommodate her stupid sensibilities. The manager surprisingly signs to the group asking if we found everything to our liking. We all practically say yes to some degree. Yes, okay, etc. different signs. The manager proceeds to inform the entitled mother that she'll need to leave us alone or he will have to ask her to leave. She apparently continued to complain about how we continue to sign after all this and was asked to leave. She did and apparently screamed how she's never coming back. The manager gave us 10% off our bills, except the roommate who dealt with the brunt of it, who got his meal free. Ironically, I assume the group was conversing in ASL, American Sign Language, which is technically more American than English, a language from a foreign country. Well guys, that's it for today. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. The story is about an OP who is in a wheelchair, she was with her cat at the airport, and about the EM who tried to do terrible things to OP and her cat. Check this out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.